when you're developing a course and you use anything at all that doesn't come from your own brain, in other words, any third-party material from someone else, you always need to be thinking about the copyright implications because that content is someone else's property. And there are several different ways that you can use other people's content. In the e-learning context, the first thing that comes to mind, obviously, is linking to material. And links are always okay. A link is just an address, like pointing to something in a telephone book. You may have noticed the YouTube videos that we have in the first lesson. We link to them, even though YouTube has code where you can embed video in lessons. The reason we didn't do that is we are then taking possession, we're putting it on our server. If it was posted illegally in the first place, then we're liable for that. So a clean link is always a good thing, a good way to go. If you're looking at fair use, there are 4 fair use factors, and very briefly, they are, you need to be with a non-profit educational institution. If you are with a for-profit school, fair use doesn't even come into play. The second thing is, what kind of material are you using? Is it very factual, dry, very small audience? That weighs in favor of fair use. The third item is, how much of the item are you using? And it doesn't necessarily need to be what percentage of it, or it can also be the most important part or the central part of an item. So that's the third factor to consider. And the fourth, and the one that's often the most important, is, are you doing the content owner out of any royalties or any financial gain that they would get if you didn't just use their material for free? So those are the 4 things that you've got to think about when you are considering whether you can use an item under fair use. If you're going to use something over and over and over again, obviously factor 4 could come into play, where using it once or twice might not have much impact on the copyright owner, but using it 10 times does. So those are things to think about. There's a law called the TEACH Act, which allows for use of copyrighted material in distance learning without getting permission. I know you have reading materials on it, and the TEACH Act is complicated. There's a laundry list of requirements that have to be in place at the institution before you can even consider using it. So be sure you're really familiar with those and decide whether or not you can be TEACH Act compliant. I really encourage you to see what is in the library at your institution. Most libraries have large collections of subscription databases. You can put up a persistent link which links right to the database. You don't have to pay for that again because those products are already purchased based on FTE for the students at your school. So those are great resources, a great way to link to material. Image collections, music collections, articles. Check with your library and see what they have. And of course, one thing you shouldn't discount is just asking for permission. If you want to use something and it's a great resource and you can't justify fair use, no reason not to ask for permission. A lot of the time, it's a lot easier than you would think. Most websites have information about who owns something or where to go and ask. So don't be afraid to ask. Yes, it can be a hassle. It can involve some work. But just think if it were your content that someone was using. So basically, just be sure that anytime you're using third-party content, you sort of think through all of those issues.